Okay, so I think we can go ahead and get started just out of respect for everyone's time. Thank you all so much for being here today. We are very excited to be hosting this speaker series. For those of you who have been with us in the past, you know that this event is typically a half-day conference. And so this year we've had to pivot to a virtual speaker series. And kind of the plus side of that is that more people can access the event. So it's not all bad. And I also know that we have some non-Duke folks joining us today. Thank you so much for being here. And so for those of you who are new, I will just introduce myself very quickly. My name is Anna Jacobs, and I work for the Duke Innovation and Entrepreneurship Initiative. Primarily, I work on our educational offerings. And then by way of introduction to Duke I&E, we are a university-wide initiative out of the Provost's office. And so that means that we are here to serve all Duke students and faculty. We're not out of any one department. And so we work with, again, students and faculty across all disciplines across the university. So the purpose of the speaker series is to bring inspirational women to talk about their careers, how they got to where they are, lessons learned, how their entrepreneurial skills have shaped their careers. We know that representation matters. That is very clear. From many different studies have proven that. And so we want to make sure that all Duke students have the opportunity to see themselves in an entrepreneurial career. And we are very lucky to be kicking off the speaker series with Candace today, whom I will introduce in just a moment. But I also just want to mention, as you can see up on the screen, we have two more upcoming talks in the coming weeks, March 30th and April 8th. We'll be hosting Milagros Brown, whose startup's mission is to level the playing field of political access through information and community. And then finally, the final installment of our series will be hosting Anna Wilson, who is currently the head of people programs at DoorDash, a little company y'all might have heard of. So she's not an entrepreneur, but she's going to talk about how we can all employ entrepreneurial skills in our careers. This session will be recorded, so it's going to be uploaded to our I&E YouTube account after we're finished. Unfortunately, we have live auto captioning today, but when we upload the recording to our YouTube channel, there will be captions there, and we will also have a transcript that we can distribute after today. So now I will get to it and introduce Candace. Candace is a computer scientist and visionary entrepreneur transforming the hair care industry through science and technology. She serves as founder and CEO of MYAVANA, an innovative hair care technology company that uses artificial intelligence to recommend the perfect products for your hair. Through a recently launched mobile application, you're able to take a photo of your hair and receive an instant analysis of your hair type, along with recommended products, consultations with an expert, and healthy hair guidance. For customers with specific hair challenges, MYAVANA offers a hair kit to send strands of your hair for a detailed hair analysis and personalized hair care plan. MYAVANA has developed its own patent-pending proprietary technology to help women choose the best hair care products, ingredients, regimens, and professional salons to achieve desired styles and hair health. Candace has been recognized for her work on the Forbes 30 Under 30 list, WWD's Top 50 Beauty Innovators, BET Honors STEM Award, Sephora Accelerate Fellow, and featured nationally on CNN's Small Business Success segment, Marie Claire Magazine's Next Big Thing in Beauty, Essence Festival Inc. magazine, Black Enterprise, Business Insider, and more. That's a lot. She graduated from the Georgia Institute of Technology in 2011 with a degree in computer science, where she was initiated into the ANAK Society, the highest honor at Georgia Tech, and recently named on their inaugural Top 40 alumni list. She currently serves as entrepreneur in residence for Ascend Atlanta, a technology startup and small business support ecosystem for minority-led companies. She shares her knowledge and insight with other entrepreneurs as an author of The Shift, her first book that helps entrepreneurs gain the spiritual transformation needed to endure and excel on the entrepreneurial journey. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Candace, and she can also address how we will handle questions as they come up throughout the presentation. So thank you all so much again. Feel free to send me a chat message if you have any questions or if you need anything. All right, thank you, Candace. I will stop sharing my screen also.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much, Anna, for that amazing introduction and for having me here today. I'm excited to share a little bit about my journey starting my business. I started where a lot of you all are right now, which is in college. I actually started my business idea when I was a senior at Georgia Tech, and was able to actually launch the company a year after I graduated. And here we are today. So I always like to share what it was like getting started, because I've walked right in your footsteps. And what I've learned over the course of time is that your leadership style heavily influences the type of entrepreneur that you are. And so if you can identify what your leadership style is from the beginning, it really helps shape the perspective that you have as you're navigating the different elements of starting a business. And so my emphasis today is going to be on visionary leadership, because a lot of the problems or things that your products that you're thinking about, if it has any type of innovative element to it, if it's a innovation, something new, or you want to bring something new to a market, it requires the visionary aspect of leadership to kick in. And sometimes that can be hard because you're literally creating something that does not exist. And but the in actuality, you could actually be shaping the industry in a very history making way that actually empowers you to be a pioneer. And so I wanted to talk about that today, and I'd love to hear your thoughts and your questions as I go along. We can definitely make this interactive. And so, first, I'll start just by sharing a bit about my journey. And so, I call it, taking the road less traveled, because the idea that I had starting out when I was in college actually was way different than what a lot of the route that a lot of my peers were taking, right? So, when you think about senior year, it's all about job offers, it's all about interviews. But I started to take the path of entrepreneurship through a class that I took as an undergrad. And I kind of felt like I had the entrepreneurial bug every now and then, but it really started to feel real when I realized that there was a problem that I could solve that just so happened to do with my hair. And so I was going natural when I was the summer after my junior year, going into my senior year. And so I had never really felt my natural hair before, which is, kind of surprising. I think I was maybe 20 or 21 years old at the time. But my hair was changing, and I was really trying to figure out what products that I should use for my hair. And so I was trying everything that I could possibly find. I was asking my roommates, my friends, my mom, my sisters, everyone. And everyone had all different answers. I started to try some things, and it was drying my hair out, breaking it off. And I just thought, this is so much trial and error and like so much guesswork that my my background in computer science started to kick in, and I just thought like, man, there should be some type of app or software that could just tell me what to use for my hair. And so because that did not exist, I decided that, maybe this could be a product that I could create using my skills. And so I started researching the science of hair, and I knocked on professors' doors asking if I could use some lab space, started looking at hair strands under the microscope to really understand like what is actually going on. Like, why does my hair frizz up on some days? Why is it this type of curl pattern on some days? Like, why is it drying out? Why is it breaking off? Like all these variables, right? And so I came up with an algorithm based on my research that could say, if I have this type of hair, it will work well with these type of products. And so I did my first pitch as a senior. I entered like a pitch competition on campus. So it was called the Inventor Prize. And my product was actually called Hair Tech. And my tagline was no more bad hair days. And so I had, like my table with all these hair products. I had my poster ready. And it was so funny because all of the judges, the judges that I pitched to and those that were walking around were all older, bald white men. And so it was such a disconnect, like hair, like, okay, what about hair? Isn't it just so easy? Don't you just go buy some shampoo from the store? And I'm like, no, it's so complicated. And so I think initially it was kind of like, oh, yeah, that's the girl with the hair idea. But as I started talking about the market opportunity, once they realized that the hair industry is a $500 billion market, they're like, whoa, okay, let's talk a bit more. And so from the business side, I was able to capture interest um, and then kind of introduce them to this world of natural hair, right? And the fact that um, I think women of color at the time were spending 33% more than the average consumer on hair products. And it's because we have, such a high hair texture variety. And so I, went through that process of pitching, made it to the semifinals, decided to focus on school and focus on graduating, right? After all those years, you kind of really want that sense of accomplishment. And so a year later, I actually ran into my professor while I was recruiting on campus, and he encouraged me to apply to this new tech startup accelerator that had just started. I knew nothing about this world, and I applied and got accepted. And the program actually came with an investment into the company. So that was my first experience having an investor. And so I decided to, take the leap of faith and really start to build this company. And so what I kind of felt at the time is because this was something completely new, something that hadn't been done before, there was no blueprint for me to follow. I realized that I had the qualities of a visionary. And so a visionary, again, has a vision and is literally bringing vision to reality. And I know we kind of use that phrase a lot, but what happens when you actually have to do that? Like you're taking an idea inside of your head and really bringing it to life. And so, a few things that really empowered me to uh, have the faith and confidence to step out and go do it was the fact that I started early, right? So at that time, I think I was 23 years old. And I said, what do I have to lose? Like, if for some reason this doesn't work, I'm young enough to move on to the next thing, right? And so starting early certainly has its benefits. Leaning on my professors actually gave me a huge advantage because think about all the resources that your university has, right? You just the mere fact of being a student there, you have access to all of these resources, right? So use it wisely. Like there was so many things, like even when I was doing my research, like access to different journals, like I was just amazed about all the information that I had access to, but also their relationships. So who does your professor know, right? Like if you started to form relationships with your professors, who could they connect you to, or what resource could they provide? And so I was fortunate to have had, conversations with particular professors that I knew that this was somewhere in their wheelhouse, right? So either the data analysis side or the nanotechnology side or the entrepreneurship side, so I started to share more like, hey, I know this is outside of regular classwork, but I'm actually working on this hair care company. And so that really gave me leverage to really push forward on this vision. And then again, being resourceful. You may not have, $1 million starting out to get it started, but you can actually use who you know in your networks to be resourceful. And so that allowed me to really push out in this vision. And I was absolutely the visionary, the person, sharing the big picture, getting people excited, getting people involved, and getting on board. And so within that 1 year period of starting the company, the great quality that visionaries tend to have, and you can cultivate this, is your ability to tell the story, right? Tell the story of what you're envisioning. What does it look like? What does it feel like? How do you see the world differently when your product or your business is launched, right? And so I was able to use my visionary skills to raise money. And within that 1 year, I believe I raised, I think, about $300,000 to really build this company, right? And so I would meet angel investors, and I would just share the vision. I would share this whole new world of hair care that I envision. If we actually had the data about your hair, we could make your hair life so much easier. Um, we did a crowdfunding campaign as well. So at the time, it was Kickstarter and Indiegogo. And so got on video and explained the vision, right? So I did all this without even having a product, like anything. This is day one. And so telling that story, sharing that vision in a campaign form, was able to raise more money for that. Um, I was able to raise a friends and family round, but the kicker was pitch competitions. So I think I enrolled in maybe like close to 10 pitch competitions, and I won almost all of them. And so again, leaning into your visionary skills allows you to attract resources. And so the big shift for me is that I was a complete introvert before starting my company. Like so shy. I was like so just adverse to starting conversations with people. Like I pretty much liked being behind my laptop, like as a developer, just getting it done. It kind of even pained me to think about networking, like all of that stuff, right? Um, but I had to lean in my ability to communicate the vision and get people excited. So I had to pull really out another side of myself to really, again, attract resources and put your ideas in motion, right? So as you're putting your ideas in motion, you actually tend to attract resources, and that's what builds the momentum, right? Because then you take the resources to put it towards building your business, and you just continue to do that every day. And so uh, visionary leadership is a key component to growth, right? And so I share that to say that even if you are, the quietest person, the most introverted person, once you have something that you're very passionate about, you can really get the world excited and get them behind you. And so this led to a lot of surprises. So one day I received a phone call to be interviewed on a national talk show called The Real. And that actually brought in our first like significant amount of customers and drove like millions of people to our website. One day I was on the homepage of Georgia Tech and someone called me and said, "Hey, I see this whole profile in your business." And that led to more features and that led to more exposure, right? So it's exposure, again, it builds awareness and it attracts customers. And so, all of these things, these accolades, the press that, was in my bio, these are all things that just naturally came to me because I was using my visionary gift. And so when people hear about you and they want to learn more and they go to your website and they hit that contact button, you have no idea who could end up in your email inbox. And so some people who showed up was Forbes, BT, CNN, and again, people were asking me like, who is your press person? Who is your PR firm? And I said, I don't have a PR firm. And it's literally because the vision was going forth. Um, but there are some challenges and some learnings with that, right? Because at some point you need the vision to materialize, right? At some point, the reality part has to start kicking in. And so the key part of bringing it to reality was, of course, building it, right? So you need to actually physically be able to build. And I wanted to touch on that too. And this is an interactive question. How many of you all feel that you are a visionary? And how many of you all think that you're more of an operator, meaning like you like the building aspect of making things work? I'm curious to know where you all stand with that because generally, right, just like you have two sides of your brain, left side, right side of the brain, right? You tend to lean to one side or the other, and both are needed in building businesses. Both are needed, right? And so if I'm 100% visionary, that means that I better have an operator on my team, right? Because next thing you know, you're headed in this direction as a visionary. And the people are like, yeah, this is exciting. This is great. Okay. Where is it? How can I use it? And then you're like, oh, wait, okay, let me go figure that out. Right? So the visionary and the operator should be working together. So if you are an operator, though, right, that means that you have the skills and the capabilities to build, get the job done. But what are we working towards, right? You still need a vision to work towards, right? And if you're the one, let's say, behind the scenes making it happen, who is raising the awareness? Who's bringing in the resources? Who's able to help you get your job done, right? And that's why you need both. And so I'm going to hop into the chat and let's see. So I see Bobby's an operator, Catherine's an operator, Erica's an operator and advisor. Advisors are very important. We'll get to that. Yulin, I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly, is an operator. We have a lot of operators here. Okay, so Marion's a visionary. Anna's an operator. Megan's an operator. Lorraine is an operator and strategist. Yes, strategist. This is a team effort, right? All of these roles are so important. And Melody's an operator. And so I'm curious to know what attracted you to this talk about visionary leadership. What made you want to join today? Because we have the majority of everyone leans more to the operator side. So I'm curious, please drop that into the chat. I see Diane is an operator as well. And so what does that mean from an organizational standpoint, right? That means that the visionary needs a strong COO, an operations person. So if some of you guys could share what attracted you to this talk about visionary leadership, and how can we bridge that gap? And so I said, I see Bobby saying a great story and inspiration. Yes, amen. Thank you for that. Yes, I'm so happy to share about this. Yes, Diane is saying you can always reinvent yourself. Yes, that is certainly true, and learn more. Inspiration. Okay, awesome. So some of you are here, yes, about the story, the concept. Awesome. And so all of these roles, all of these perspectives are necessary because I'm at the point in my journey where, getting a lot of press, right? And so, all right, I'm like, okay, we got to make it happen because the audience is ready. They're ready to sign up, they're ready to buy. And so, how did we get there? How did we get there? One of the first major things is we started talking to customers, talking to people who were interested in our product. We had a beta version, and so some people bought into it without even knowing the full picture. And so, this process of customer discovery, it helps you understand your target customer. And so, I interviewed over 1,000 women one-on-one about their hair before we even built our product. And it was so interesting hearing about women's hair challenges, their hair issues. But the most surprising thing was that they would always talk about what's happening in their life at the time, too. And so it was always like, yeah, my hair is breaking off, and I noticed that this started to happen, when I had this very stressful period in my life, and I was going through a divorce, I was going through, a career change, or it would be, oh, I just moved to Arizona, and the water there, the air there, it was all these stories, right? And so that made us really realize that our customers are truly on a journey, like on a journey with their hair, but in their life as well. And so that informs so many things. For us, it informed us for our marketing. It informed us on what data we need to collect from the customer aside from the hair strand. So the hair strand gave us like the quantitative data about the state of your hair. But what are all the qualitative data that we need to really understand? Like, what are your hair goals? What's your age? What's your location? So we can know what the weather is like. Um, what what do you hope to accomplish? Like, all of these motivations really helped us serve our customers in the best way. And so that truly helped us craft like the best strategy to reach our customers, but also to retain them as well. And so through this process, I actually did experience a lot of failures too, though, because the TV appearance that I mentioned for the reel, it brought in so many customers at a point where our operations wasn't really that together. It wasn't in place. It wasn't scalable. And so it was a really exciting day, but then it kind of almost felt like a nightmare because now you have thousands of orders to fulfill, and the systems aren't in place. The structure, the infrastructure isn't in place. And so that's when the operator, needs to move like just in pace with the visionary, so that as you're creating the vision and you're forming how this is all going to work, you're actually building and implementing it at the same time. And so actually, some of the failures or the challenging things I experienced in my company were because of some, external reasons as well. I started off as with co-founders, but everyone left the company at different times just because it was very challenging, or they decided to take on other opportunities, right? And so I had the operations piece part in place previously, but what happens when that person leaves? you have to pick up the load or you have to bring someone in. So I wasn't at a point where I could even hire anyone yet. So now I'm selling the vision and now trying to create it at the same time. And so that was certainly a challenge. And so a lesson like from that failure is to really have the right team in place as you're building and even as you're starting out too. And one thing that one of my mentors shared is is you don't hire skill sets, you hire mindsets. And that was so insightful for me. So she said, you don't hire skill sets, you hire mindsets. And so what does that mean? It means that if you have two candidates that have all the skill sets you need to fulfill a role, you hire the person that has the right mindset for your business. And so the right mindset, especially for a startup company, right? Like you're building it in the beginning, it takes like so much more sacrifice than your average job. So the person that has the right mindset is the person who is in it for the long term. They have the same values that you have. They respect boundaries, they build trust, they are honest, transparent, they are a team player. You know, you have to really list out like what values are aligned with me, with my life, and the culture that I want to create for this business. And so you don't hire a person just for their skill sets, you hire them for their mindsets. Because especially when you're building a startup company, it takes so much patience, sacrifice, endurance, all of that. It literally feels like a sport. Like I feel like an athlete that is constantly practicing, constantly building my muscles, constantly training my mind. Like, and so you need people who can be on that level with you. And so another learning that really came out of this experience is you just have to stay persistent even when you face failures, even when you get a lot of no's. I tried for about a year and a half to raise venture capital for my company, and it did not happen. It was just rejection after rejection. And I was like, well, I know this is a good opportunity. And so I just have to find the right people. And then eventually I did get investment from a venture firm that really helped us stay true to the mission of building a business, which is to generate revenue and profitability and to truly build your customer base. I think a lot of, especially early entrepreneurs, what you hear now is all about fundraising, like all about raising rounds. And if you feel like you're not doing that, then you feel like you're losing or you feel like you're failing. And that's just not the case. And so I had to stay persistent to really just stay in the game, and eventually things happened and it worked, and I've built an incredible team, and I'm building a great brand, and it just takes time, but most importantly it takes persistence. And so we got our first lab established in the nanotechnology building at Georgia Tech. We were able to scale our business, our hair analysis kit. Um, that service is going well. We do virtual consultations with all of our clients. If you ever have any hair care needs or issues, just come to MYAVANA. We have the best team ever and truly help you throughout your journey. And we were able to build some disruptive technology that really provides a new innovation in the market through AI and machine learning. Our mobile app can take a picture of your hair and give you instant product recommendations. And so now I'm in the phase of okay, it's happening, it's here, it's in reality, it's growing. It still blows my mind to meet customers and talk to customers who use our product and they love it, and it's just still mind blowing to me because it all started with a vision. And so I wanted to share some thoughts about, um, again, what does it take, right? And what are really the characteristics that really allow you to sustain, grow, and to really materialize the vision that you have. Because um, even based on your skills, let's say on the operator side, at the end of the day, it's a journey that does require being one with a vision and being able to build a team, bring the right people to the table. Someone mentioned advisors and mentors, and they've been a key piece of the journey too. Um, because I have an excellent advisory board as well. And so the advisory board is actually very key to bring the industry experience that you may not necessarily have. And so me starting out as, a 24-year-old, starting this company, my experience was in technology, but who are the veterans in the beauty industry that I can work with? Who are the people who have, maybe have built a business for over 20 years and they've been through everything that I'm currently going through? Those people should be on your advisory board because they will help you make less mistakes. They will save you time, money, and tears, as I like to say, by going through things that if you had the right experience around you, you could overcome. And so, as you're building and growing, the visionary leadership style is someone who sees the potential of how the world should exist, right? And this is actually applicable even beyond just business and entrepreneurship, but let's say social impact. Let's say any problem, any change that you want to see in the world requires visionary leadership. And so, even if you're an ideas person, having the visionary leadership side is the side that helps lead people to accomplish a certain action or to bring that change that you would like to see in the world. And so, some things that this does require. So, three things that this requires is risk taking. So, how many of you all are adverse to risk? Like, you hate change, you hate, like, you're very conservative with, like, you're like, I don't know if we should do this, or that's kind of like your first thing is like you kind of stay away from risk. And trust me, we have all been there before. Yes, Marion says she tries not to, right? You don't want to be that person, but that's kind of, each one of us leans a certain way, right? Bobby's being honest. That's them, right? So change is never risk free, right? If you want to make a change in the world, if you want to make a change in business, if you want to bring something new to life, it is never free of taking risk, right? And it's also rare that the solution is going to happen immediately, right? It's always a journey. It's always a journey. And so you have to develop some level of comfortability with taking risks, right? Um, I was talking to my husband, and he likes to call it calculated risk, right? Taking a calculated risk. So it's not that you're just gonna jump off the cliff and hope everything hope the balloon is going to open, right? It's the fact that, okay, you have the pack, it's been tested, it's been proven. Here's my course of action, here's how I'm going to approach it. Like, you at least have, a plan, and it's somewhat calculated. If there is some loss, let's say if you're planning a budget, you want to risk, trying this campaign, maybe you'll lose $500. Like, maybe that's something that, okay, if this doesn't work, all right, we can at least, it's somewhat calculated. So think about, how you can take calculated risk and leave some space open to be just a little crazy, right? Just a little crazy, because sometimes when you go for it, you can be surprised at what actually happens. The second quality you have to have as a visionary leader is listening. Listening. So this is not necessarily, for someone who thinks they know it all and someone who's just going to, charge forward and bulldoze through and make their way happen. No, you have to actually listen to your customers. And so remember, one of the things I mentioned was talking to over 1,000 people about their hair before we built anything. And so, um, if you always think that you know what's best, you better ask 2 or 3 people first. That is always my rule of thumb. Like, if I have an idea, I'm going to ask at least 3 people and listen to some feedback before I just go do it. Right. I, and I try to, I need to keep this as my rule of thumb because, years ago, I would just jump right into anything because I felt like that was a thing to do. Like, so sometimes you just move off of your emotions, like, based on how you feel that day, you just try it. No, like, you actually need to kind of, ask some trusted people, ask a mentor, ask a peer that you respect, you appreciate their insight, their wisdom. And you also have to listen to your team as well. So a good leader always listens to their team, right? I talk to my customer service rep every day. I always want to know, what are customers asking? What are they saying? I talk to our marketing people. What are people talking about on social media, right? I may not go on social media every day, but I at least need to know the things that are important to inform my decision making. And so always talk to your team, because your team also needs to feel like they're being heard too, right? So as you think about growing and sustaining, people want to know that you do respect, what they have to offer. And at the end of the day, you're listening to what they're saying. The third quality important for visionary leadership is also taking responsibility, right? So if you're going to charge forward and push through on this big idea, if it doesn't work, you can't blame it on somebody else or it was this person's fault. Like, it's important to learn how to take responsibility. And I think that's a quality that's just good in life, right? Like, it's okay. It's okay if no one's perfect, right? But people do need someone to follow. People do need someone to believe in, right? And so sometimes, when you take that risk, you have to take the responsibility at the same time. And so, um, this can one way that this can, become, something that is your first course of action instead of, after you've placed all the blame and people are now upset with you and now you feel all alone, then it's like, oh, I'll take the responsibility. No, it's all about forming the right habits. And so, one good habit to form is planning, right? Planning, planning, planning. There's a quote that I always recite, and it says, proper planning prevents poor performance. And again, I that wasn't something that I initially leaned into, right? As a visionary, you're like, okay, the world's great. This is the vision. This is how we're going to do it. But what's the plan, right? Everyone needs a plan at some point. Like, what's the plan? And so when you plan well, you can really, like, foresee things that could go wrong. And so when you are taking the responsibility, it's after the fact that you have thought everything through. You have approached this from every perspective and you did put your best foot forward. And when you do that, it's just so easy to take the responsibility because at the end of the day, you put your best foot forward. And so that's a really good habit to form. I'm still getting better at that. I will say, especially as you get more responsibilities to handle, right? There's a scripture that says, to whom much is given, much is required, right? So as I grow and, as we increase, the responsibility increases too. So the more you can form those habits, the more you can, really stay on point, um, in your leadership, And so, at the visionary side kind of leads more to the as an optimist. And so I will definitely say I'm a total optimist. But I think a good team also has an optimist, a pessimist, but a realist as well. Let's meet in the middle. And so whatever your leadership style is, I think it's always good to have a mix of it all. But let the visionary lead. Let the visionary lead. You can check it with your pessimist side, like, what am I missing? Like, if I was, like they say, the devil's advocate, what could go wrong, or what's not quite right about this? But then as a realist, you can meet yourself in the middle, knowing that, okay, there's a little bit of risk here. There's also some opportunity. So let's create a plan around this. Let's minimize the risk as much as we can, but then let's push forward towards the vision. So that's what I wanted to share today. I hope this was helpful because, again, like, the leadership style was something that I learned to develop after the fact that things weren't going so well. So I always, tell entrepreneurs that you don't necessarily have to wait until things are bad or challenging to work on these things. It's really great to kind of cultivate it as you go, right? Cultivate it as you grow. And I think everyone can pull out their visionary side, because obviously in 2021, there's so much change needed in this world. There's so much change needed in this country, and there's so much change that we can bring into business, right? So my change was through innovation, science and technology to improve the hair care experience. And so I would ask you, what is the change that you're going to bring to the world? What change do you want to bring to a particular market? And start to chart your path forward. So I was able to start in college just like you all. And every day you can choose to start, at least, and to start the journey. So thanks so much for having me. I know we have a few minutes left, so I would love to know if anyone has any questions. And again, I'm excited to have shared this time with you guys today, and encourage you guys to really continue on with your ideas, your visions for entrepreneurship.
Thank you so much. That was wonderful. I definitely have a couple of questions that I have taken down. Would you prefer that we drop them in the chat, or people just kind of jump in and?
Yeah, you can jump in. Yeah,
okay.
Feel free to jump in.
Okay. We can, I'm happy to kick off with one of my questions, which was kind of early on in your talk. You mentioned pitching your idea to bald white men. And I was just curious, you talked about having to kind of learn how to communicate as an introvert, and how do you get someone excited about something that, you're solving a problem that is not visible to them, and it's not necessarily something that they would see as a problem. And so not just like convincing them that your idea is a good one, but getting them excited about it, and then so excited that they give you money. Kind of, how did you go about that, and what tips would you have for that kind of communication?
Yeah, sure. So I think one of the first things that's important is to know what interests them. What are their interests, right? Because if I knew that big markets interest these people, then I would have led with how big the hair industry is. And then let me bring you into this niche community called the natural hair community, where all this activity is happening because all these needs are now present. And so it's really all about what you lead with. And you have to lead with something that can hook them so that you can reel them in. And so sometimes this is hard. So yes, sometimes this is hard to do on the spot, right? If you're just meeting someone right then and there. But if you have any time to research someone before you actually meet them, I absolutely would do that. So I knew the judges ahead of time before I pitched. I should have done my research. And, again, I'm a first time entrepreneur. I was just starting out. But looking back, I would have done my research first. So do your research, know what interests them, and lead with that. So if I'm like, oh, John, it's so nice to meet you. I saw that you have done some past work in the healthcare industry. And he's going to be like, oh, yeah, he's going to talk about it a little bit. And I might say, well, I have a hair analysis company and we're actually exploring some things on the health side right now. I would love to tell you more about that. And absolutely, because it's something that interests him. So instead of me just giving my whole spiel and just talking, I have no idea how to connect. And so if you're meeting someone on the spot, I would actually kind of introduce myself first and ask some things about them. So you don't have to necessarily go into your whole spiel right away. You can say, hey, thanks for coming by. Like, what interests you about, hair care? And sometimes they may say, well, I saw this commercial one day and I was wondering if blah, blah, blah. And you can find a way to connect to that. Or they may say, hey, I know nothing at all. And so then you can say, well, can I tell you about a huge opportunity that you may want to know about from an investment standpoint? And they're like, sure, because they want to make money, right? So it's all about what interests them. And I wish I could have been, again, a little bit more comfortable and confident with myself to kind of have these conversations versus, I'm kind of nervous. So I'm just going to go right into my elevator pitch, because you always want to create that connection point.
That's great. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And it reminds me also of the point in what's required of a visionary leader, and listening is a huge
listening. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, I certainly have other questions, but I would love to give other folks an opportunity to ask. I don't want to take up all your time with my questions. And folks can feel free to drop it in the chat if you're more comfortable with that, but also jumping in is great. Okay, well, I'm happy to ask another question.
I see some coming in the chat.
Oh, you do? Oh, great. Perfect. Yes. Can you go further with how do you deal with employees leave? Like when they leave?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. That is always tough. And so in hindsight, a few things. So I think that, again, alignment, right? Are they in alignment with the vision? And really kind of assessing those things up front. With your employees, it's really important to have regular check-ins and have like a performance plan and like a professional development plan, right? Because you have to think about, why do people leave? People leave because they want a different opportunity, or they may have had a bad experience, or they just want something new, right? So you can only worry about the things that you can control. If it's something out of your control, you just have to let it go. So what are the things you can control? You can control the culture of your company, right? So making sure that it's a positive environment for everyone to thrive. You can control the performance, meaning you've given them all the tools that they need to succeed. They know what their goals and objectives are. They know what your expectations are, right? And then you can control the communication. So regular check-ins, absolutely, once a week with a small company, because things are moving so fast, like once a week, so that you're always in the know. And again, you're creating an honest and transparent environment. And so if you've done those things and, you know, they still leave, they want to do something else, then okay, it's the letting go process, right? So do you have everything documented that they've done, so that you can hand it off to the next person, right? Do you have all your signed agreements in place? So everyone joining your company should sign an NDA. They should sign a non-compete. Their intellectual property should be assigned to the company. And so that it could be a clean break, right? It's not a clean break when there's some other things muddled in it. And that's when it gets frustrating and stressful, right? And so those are some things I would share initially. But always happier to dive more if this is a real topic that you need some assistance with. And I'll also drop my email in the chat. Actually, you can request me on LinkedIn and we can stay connected there. You're welcome.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So I'm going to do a lightning round of questions.
Okay.
Try to give you the quickest answer. Let's see. Okay. So, I see I actually got a direct message from Marion, who's actually in high school. Was there experience in high school where where I felt truly dedicated to entrepreneurship? So I would say that I really didn't have that exposure in high school. I did have exposure to web development. So that actually really made me cultivate my web design skills. And actually, that was my first company, if I really think about it. I built websites for people. So I will say it was the skills that led me to entrepreneurship, but I actually wish that I had exposure in high school. I wish I did. And so I think that there are way more programs and things available now. So I would encourage you to do some research about entrepreneurship programs available either locally or online that are dedicated to high school students. And if you connect with me on LinkedIn, I can actually share more about, I'm thinking about starting a program myself. Let's see. Did I add partners to my company after founding it? Yes. So I started with 3 co-founders. How did we work to define responsibilities and roles without feeling like you were losing control of your business? That's a very great question. So we did define responsibilities and roles. What I wish we would have done is defined those things based on actual experience and skills. So, you know, it's 4 of us. We're like, okay, I'm the CEO, you're the CTO, you're the COO, you're the CMO. Like, we just had the titles, right? But do you have the experience to be a CMO? Do you have the experience to be the COO, right? Like, do you have the experience as a CTO? So we just kind of jumped in and we're excited and, you know, had our lanes, but we needed the experience and the skills as well. So skills and experience should inform what responsibilities and roles people have. And to be honest, because of that, I did lose control of the business. So when you think about the equity, right? All the equity is now split. And so now I don't have certain aspects of control, and that's just the reality. And so I tell people, don't start with more than one partner. Please don't, because it gets so much more complicated if you do that. Because if I could go back, I would just hire the people that I needed. So that could be a longer conversation as well. You're welcome, Diana. Have you had any interaction with national businesses and the personal products? Absolutely. So we actually partner with hundreds of hair care businesses. So all of the products that we recommend, we partner with those companies. And actually, we have a partnership with companies like L'Oreal. We've partnered with Cream of Nature, tons of huge companies. So I definitely enjoy that piece because we're actually bringing innovation for those type of companies as well. So those are all the questions that I see. Very great questions too. What is your vision for your company in the future? So my vision is to become like the Amazon of hair care. So now that we have all this data on what women need to use for their hair, now we can actually retail the products. And so I also have an innovative retail strategy that I'm working on. And so I believe that we can become like a business like Amazon that truly, I mean, they've used technology to completely disrupt e-commerce. And so I believe that we will do the same for hair care. So yes, great questions. Thank you guys.
That was great. Well, thank you all so much for coming and for bringing the questions. And thank you most of all to Candace for giving us so much of your time. Really appreciate it. You mentioned if the best way to contact you is to find you on LinkedIn.
Yes,
is that right?
You can, okay. Yes, connect with me on LinkedIn. And I'm also going to drop my email here in the chat as well.
Great. And we can also send around the recording on YouTube and the transcript if anybody needs that. Awesome. And, please feel free to reach out if anybody has any questions.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. And we hope that everyone will join us for the following talks that we have next week and the week after. All that information you'll know where to find it if you found us here today. So thank you all so much. And thank you, Candace. And I hope everyone enjoys the rest of the day.
Yes. Thank you, Anna. You all take care.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye.